I'm going to show you how to legally, emphasis on the legally, pay no taxes on your Bitcoin. This is actually real. This is not clickbait. So let's get into this. Once I figured it out, it kind of changed the way I looked at Bitcoin and the ability to leverage the asset. So again, this is completely legal, and you will see from this demonstration. Also, leave me a comment what you think on this new setup here. It's the first time I'm using this whiteboard. Let me know what you think about it. I'm kind of a visual learner myself, so it took me a little bit for this to click myself, so I try to simplify things the best I can. Let's say, for this example, that you bought a Bitcoin in March of 2020 at 5,000. So 5,000 a coin, and I know my handwriting, look at that dollar sign. It's just magnificent, gorgeous. Picasso type stuff. But you bought it for 5,000 in March of 2020. Now, Bitcoin is 59,000. Let's say 60,000 for a round number. So now you got a $60,000 Bitcoin. So you bought one Bitcoin. Now you got the same Bitcoin is $60,000. You have a $55,000 gain. Did pretty well in that trade. So you made 55,000. A lot of people are actually in this position. They bought it in March of 2020, around 5,000. I think it even got less than that at one point, into like the 3-4 range. But a lot of people are here and they have that kind of a gain. They might even have multiple. But say they had one coin, they're at a $55,000 gain, just for the comparison here. This obviously can scale. You have a business idea, and your business idea needs 25,000, let's say. And the reason you're going to do this business idea is because it's going to be very lucrative for you. You can buy a lot more assets. Maybe you want to buy more Bitcoin. Maybe you want to buy more silver. Maybe you want to buy more platinum. Whatever it is, maybe you want to get real estate. Whatever it is, you have a business idea that's going to be lucrative for you and beat any other return that you can see out there, because it's just going to be a very lucrative business idea. Or you need 25,000 for whatever. Maybe it's a real estate thing. Whatever it is, you need 25 grand. You could sell that you could sell a $60,000 Bitcoin and you got a $55,000 gain. Let's say capital gains is roughly 30%. I think 30% of 55,000 is like 16.5. So you can say around 30%. Let's use rounded numbers. We'll say 15,000 is your capital gain rate. Could be a lot more than that, depending on your tax bracket. Could be a little less. Could be a lot more, depending on your state, depending on your income rate, all the different things. But let's say 15,000 you would owe. And that's kind of setting the bar a little bit low in my opinion, but we'll say 15,000. So this is if you sell that Bitcoin, you now lose 15,000 there. So you started with 5, you sold it for 60, now you lost 15,000 of it, so now you're left with 45 grand. So you got the money now, right? But you just sold the $60,000 Bitcoin and you instantaneously lost $15,000 gone, and you only got left with 45,000. Not only that, but now you lost the upside of the Bitcoin. If you're bullish on Bitcoin, you think you get to 100,000, you think it could go higher than this, you now lost that upside of the Bitcoin by selling it. So you lost 15,000 right off the bat, and then you basically have 45,000 in fiat money. That's the first example of how you could do this, and that's if you just do things in the way of sell your Bitcoin, lose your upside of your Bitcoin, and you have to pay that bill towards the taxes. First way to do it, let's go over how you can leverage here. So we'll go on to this side, and this is something that Coinbase is offering, and there's Coinbase, there's Unchained Capital, I think there's another one called Celsius. There's competition brewing in this lending space, and it's something that was mind-boggling once I heard about it, because if there's more competition, eventually you're going to have them kind of catering more and more to you, aka lower interest rates, not doing anything with the Bitcoin. I think Unchained actually leaves you with one of the multi-sigs, so they can't move the Bitcoin around. You can follow it in that account, but we'll get into that in a little bit. So what you could do is, say you have your $60,000 coin. Well, hang on. We're going to go with green. So say you have your $60,000 Bitcoin. Now you want your 25 grand. Well, maybe we'll bump it up to 30 just for the sake of this and say, because we got 45 grand there, we'll say you need somewhere between 25 and 45 grand. So you got 60,000 there. Now, what you could do is do that. You could sell it, take the 45 grand, you lose the upside of the Bitcoin, and you had to pay 15 grand right off the top. Or say you only need this money for a short-term duration of time. Maybe you only need this money for a year. Maybe you only need this money for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Depends on whatever amount of time you need to get this capital real quick. But you also believe in the upside of Bitcoin. So you think Bitcoin could get to 100,000. You think Bitcoin can get to 250,000. You're one of us in the Bitcoin community that thinks Bitcoin can continue to go up. It's obviously done pretty well for you. But it's obviously a bit of a risk there. But let's say you believe in Bitcoin going up. You could take your Bitcoin and you could give that Bitcoin to, and I don't recommend to do this because it's not where I want to be. I think Unchained is the only one that's allowing you to monitor it. So Unchained is the one that I would be looking into, but there's probably in the next year or two going to be a lot more lending services, but Coinbase is offering it now. They're a publicly traded company, so they're probably the most capital behind that company, but they're allowing it. So anyway, I would keep your Bitcoin in cold storage. This is only if you want to leverage. We can get into a lot longer of a conversation on what kind of amount. Say you only needed a smaller amount of this, you only needed 5,000. You could do this with a very small amount, keep your Bitcoin in cold storage and only get a loan on a very small amount of your Bitcoin position. Maybe you only need to leverage 10% of it. But what Coinbase will do, we'll just use Coinbase for this example. They say, hey, we'll hold your Bitcoin for you. So we'll take your Bitcoin and we'll hold it here at the bank of Coinbase. In return, we will give you, and they're already doing this, a 50% collateralized loan against that Bitcoin position. So we will wire you to your account of choice $30,000 in fiat dollars. Now, I believe they're charging either 6 or 8%. So it's somewhere between 6 and 8%. It's probably going to change as competition continues and get lower and lower and lower. I'd imagine eventually it gets to like 4%, 5%, something like that. But I believe it's between 6 and 8% to get a 50% collateralized loan against your Bitcoin. Now you have your 30,000 here. You still own your Bitcoin. Coinbase is just holding that Bitcoin, and now you have the 30,000 at 6 to 8% annual, and they're holding your Bitcoin. But here's something that's crazy. You get the upside of your Bitcoin, because say Bitcoin goes to 100,000, you could pay them off, pay them back their 30,000 and get your $100,000 coin back, get the entire upside, and in that entire process, you never declared a capital gain. Now, why is that crazy? Even if you said the rate was 10%, even if you said it was 10%, so let's say it's 10%, I believe it's 6 to 8%, but let's say the annual rate is 10%. Just maybe it's got way higher, but I believe it's a lot less than 10%. But just for the sake of rounded numbers, that would be you're losing 3,000 a year. And that's at a really high rate. That makes no sense to take a 10% annualized loan. It's probably a lot less than that. I believe it's in that 6 to 8% range. But you'd be losing 3,000 a year at 30,000 range. So that means that this actually makes the math nice and round because you lost 15,000 there. And that was at a low capital gain rate. You lost 15,000. That means you have 5 years. You have 5 years now. Instead of doing this, you have 5 years before the rate, even at 10%, catches up to the loss that you had to pay in capital gains. So you not only get the upside of your Bitcoin, because what's going to happen is your business might do well. You get your 30,000 back, or say you have other ways of getting that money anyway, and you pay back that loan. You can now get, say Bitcoin goes to 100,000, you pay back Coinbase. You say, hey, I got the 30 grand. Here's your 30 grand, Coinbase. And now, know what Coinbase does? They're going to go, okay, now we have the 30,000. We're paid back in full. We've got our interest and the 30,000. So you pay them back. Say you had 5 years, right? You'd pay them back 45,000, even if it was at 10%. You paid them back that money. But now, say Bitcoin is at 100K. You now get that Bitcoin right back into your account. So now you're back in the position of I own a Bitcoin, whatever that price may be. So it doesn't matter if you gave it to them at 60,000, doesn't matter if you gave it to them at 50,000. If Bitcoin is now 100,000 and you paid back that loan, you get that Bitcoin back at the same price of what it's worth on the market. So you get Bitcoin, the same Bitcoin that you gave them back then, you would get the upside in that. So basically, if that happened in that scenario, you get 40K of upside. Let's say Bitcoin's 100 grand. Obviously, this is not financial advice. This is just a hypothetical here. It could go down. It could go down and you could do very bad on this. So make sure that you have money available to pay the loan. This is just for somebody that knows how to leverage here. I'm just teaching how to do this. But say Bitcoin got to 100 grand. Maybe it gets a lot higher than that. Maybe it gets a lot less than that. But let's say wherever Bitcoin is, we're going to call it 100 grand. You got 40K profit. So you lost 15,000 on the loan. And that's if they did 10%. It's a lot less than that. So you're really going to lose like 10,000, something like that, 10, 12,000. Now, Coinbase, basically you paid them back, you get the Bitcoin. Now you have the Bitcoin back here. And I know this is just beautiful work here, Picasso type stuff. But I hope it simplifies it for you, because now you never declared a capital gain. You never sold it. You got a loan against it. You paid back the loan. You got the Bitcoin back. You had a 5-year loan. 5 years straight, you got to sit with that capital and do stuff with that 30,000. And now you got the Bitcoin back, and the Bitcoin's now worth 100K. You see how this gets pretty insane when you're talking about large numbers here? Maybe you have $1 million Bitcoin position and you only need 50 grand, so you give them 100K and you get a 50K loan against that, and you keep the 900 in your own cold storage. That's the better way to go about this, rather than taking a big risk if this is all that you have in Bitcoin. But basically that's going over how the loan system works in Bitcoin, and I'm very excited to see how this evolves Bitcoin, because at the end of the day, there's a lot of people that are in this position here. There's a lot of people that bought Bitcoin low, have a huge gain on their hands, and they want to be able to do something with this asset. But the ability to easily, and this is seamless, you can just put it into Coinbase, send them the Bitcoin, they wire transfer you a loan against your Bitcoin. Now these rates are going to change. Maybe somebody wants to give you 40% against your Bitcoin and give you a lower percentage rate. This will all be on sliding scales here. So say you give them a larger amount of Bitcoin, probably your interest rate will be down if you only got like 20% against 100% of your Bitcoin. So you can probably get less leverage. But then there's also the risk there, because say Bitcoin crashes, they can liquidate your Bitcoin position to pay for that. So there's all these different variables there to look into the fine print. But all in all, if you wanted to leverage your Bitcoin, if you really badly needed a fiat loan, if you really had a bill you needed to pay, but you want the upside of Bitcoin, the ability to leverage it that easy, and the fact that a publicly traded company like Coinbase is allowing you to do that, that's opening up the floodgates to all kinds of lenders happening out there. And this is going to get very competitive. The rates are going to go much, much less than what we used in this example. I use a really, really high price point just to show how viable this really is. But it's something to keep your eye on, and it's something to think about if you do have a big gain on your hands. Maybe you don't want to sell it and have to deal with the capital gains, because your capital gains might be a lot higher than that. That's pretty much the entire thing I wanted to talk about here, because it took me a while to comprehend just how crazy this really is that you can do this right now, like as of now. I don't recommend it as of right now if it's your entire Bitcoin position. If you wanted to leverage 10% of it, I can't recommend anything. None of this is financial advice. Disclaimer. Could be completely wrong about all this because I'm not a financial advisor. But if it were me, and say I had X amount of Bitcoin, I would give them maybe 10% of it and get a loan against that 10% and keep 90% of my Bitcoin in my custody, because I don't like somebody else having custody of my Bitcoin. This is only if I'm in a position where I want to leverage the Bitcoin and not have to deal with capital gains. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think about these whiteboard videos. Do you like my beautiful handwriting? One day I got to sell that as art. All right. Thanks for watching. You can only thumbs up this video, by the way, so appreciate it. If you want to subscribe, would really appreciate you subscribing to the channel. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you at the next video.